Okay, on behalf of the town of Wardsboro and the Friends of the Wardsboro Library, I want to welcome the governor for spending some time with us today. As you know, all the children in this building last year or the year before spent a lot of time up in the State House to make sure that we got the Gill Feather as the state register. This year's Gill Feather Festival is the 28th, which we hope you might be able to attend. And we just want to thank everyone in the State House for all the efforts that they've done with the Gill Feather. I know we appreciate all the effort here in town. And welcome to Wardsboro.
Well, thank you very, very much, Matt.
On behalf of the library, I want to issue you a Gill Feather State Vegetable hat.
Well, thank you.
And a tuna kill. Thank you very much.
That is tough to follow. My name is Bill Anton. I am the superintendent of Windham Central, so I am the fortunate man that gets to oversee these two wonderful schools. What a great example we have here today of applied learning, of really having engaged students. We have phenomenal educators that have created the conditions for our students to really learn through doing. And in the example of Wardsboro, they got to work through the legislative process, go up to the State House. In Dover, you did it really at the local level and working with your select board. It's an example of what we want to have happen in Vermont. Being a young, new superintendent, it's exciting to see that the things we've been thinking about in Vermont are actually coming to play out. I would like at this moment, if we could have the 6 people that have been elected from Wardsboro and Dover to please rise so that we can just recognize, the 6 people that have been elected from Wardsboro and Dover for the new board on the River Valley's school district. If you could all please rise so that we can see who you are. We'll be introducing you later, but I think it's important for everybody. We've got 1, 2, Barry over there, 4, 5, and
we're missing Rick Thorpe.
We're missing a 6th person. These are the 6 people that are going to take this new school district into the future. And so they got a lot of work on their hands. We're very excited to have them, but they're going to be the leaders for the next 2 years before this district comes into play July 1st, 2019. So if we can give them a little quick round of applause. And then it's my pleasure to introduce the Windham Central Supervisory Union Chairman, the chairman of the Dover School, and the chairman of the study committee that brought to fruition through Act 46 the creation of this new school district, Mr. Rich Werner.
So I've got about 20 pages, so bear with me, please. And I promised Laura, who set this all up, that I would not use the word.
Don't say.
No. So
I know the word.
So anyways, Governor, it's a great pleasure to have you here. We really appreciate it. We've got a lot of other legislators here. Emily Long, who between Emily and I for the last 15 or 18, 20 years, either one of us has been chairman of Windham Central. I know we have Senator White here. I believe we have Representative Gannon here. We have some former representatives, but we appreciate all you folks coming. This is going to be a really interesting, a really neat, I think this is the first time ever, Governor, that you've started one of these new districts. That was, and I think it's pretty cool that he chose, out of all the places he could have gone and done this, and there's been many of these new districts, he came to Dover, Wardsboro, and I think that says a lot for their commitment to our smaller school districts and in the more rural parts of Vermont. So I feel really proud and privileged that we're allowed to have him here and have him open up the meeting. And we appreciate all the parents and everybody that supported us. And I'd like to also recognize a couple people that I think are here, or at least they told me they're going to be here, but on my glasses I can't see that great. I know Jill Dean from Wardsboro served on the study committee with us, and Randy Capitani from Dover also served on the study committee with us. And if they're here, I think they should be also recognized because they're the reason we're now here. They're part of the reason we're now here. So are those two here? Randy is in the back. Thank you. we're going to have a very robust presentation by starting off with the Dover School with some students that went on a trip, and part of our class in Dover is we're moving towards an IB program, International Baccalaureate Program, which Mr. Anton started us with, and Mr. Martin has done a great job in continuing us down that path. And it was one of those lessons they were doing. They got to go visit Andy McLean at the town clerk's office, and they worked together very hard with Andy and their teacher. Well, I think is she here today, the last year's teacher? Yep. So without further ado, it's the Dover, now you're the 5th grade class, right? And you were in 4th grade when you did this.
Last year, our 4th grade class was learning about our state and local government as part of the IB unit, how we organize ourselves. For a field trip, we visited the town office in Dover and learned about town government.
After our visit, we were given information packets about the town. Andy McLean, our town clerk, embossed our Vermont constitutions with the town seal. We thought the seal looked pretty boring and didn't represent Dover.
The town seal is used for official town businesses and is used on important town documents. We thought it should represent our town better. We all worked on creating a design. The class voted on the different designs and we selected one. This is the one of a copy Olivia made.
Next, we wrote a letter to the town asking them to consider changing the seal. Hello, we are the 4th grade class from the Dover School. We want to change the town seal. The town seal is currently ordinary and unattractive. It makes us feel like our town doesn't matter. Changing the town seal would benefit us by showing what a great town we are. Our town is neat, unique, and interesting. We feel very lucky to live in such a beautiful place with the snow, trees, animals, and mountains. We feel our town seal should represent us in a great way. We, the undersigned, call on the Dover Select Board to make a difference by changing the town seal. Olivia made a draft of a new town seal. We feel this is important because our town is very special. Dover should represent us in our town seal. Thank you. We made a poster that represented our town. First, we presented the poster and our idea to the school during our Friday morning sing. Many parents attended this event and we wanted to get the word out. We went to select board meetings and then went to our town meeting in March of 2017. We presented our idea and our reasoning for the desired change. The following members of our class presented at the town meeting: Jack, Olivia, Breck, Ella, Emerson, Eddie, Tilda, Sky, Stefan, and Keely. The town approved the idea of changing the town seal. The select board wanted further details on what the design would be and where it would be used. The town wanted a digital design of the drawing, and a relative of a student offered the graphic design expertise. The graphic designer created multiple images of the town seal, so it could be used for both professional documents as well as more creative, fun representation of Dover.
We presented the new digital version at the select board meeting, and the design was approved. We changed the Dover town seal. Yay!
Now I'll share what we presented at the town meeting that the seal was approved at. We took a field trip to the town office for our IB unit, how we organize ourselves. We decided we wanted to make some changes to our town seal, which is a stamp put on official town documents. It is a signature that represents the town. Right now, the stamp is a white circle saying Town of Dover, Vermont official seal. There are no pictures whatsoever.
We, the 4th grade of the Dover School, want to change the town seal. The town seal is currently ordinary and unattractive.
It makes us feel like our town doesn't matter. Our town is neat, unique, and interesting. We feel very lucky to live in such a beautiful place with the snow, trees, animals, and mountains.
We feel our town seal should represent us in a great way. We designed a new town seal with a pine tree and snowflakes.
The change is important because our town is very special. The town seal should represent Dover animals. We called on the town of Dover to make a difference by changing our town seal. They presented our idea at town meeting on Tuesday, March 7th, and the town approved our idea. We are now presenting our urgency to the select board for final approval. We hope that you will approve our idea. Special thanks to Ellery Curran for creating the digital design and to Andy McLean for all your support.
We are very thankful that we could make a difference in our town. We would like to thank all the people that supported and participated in our big change. They are very helpful. We would especially like to thank Courtney Perkins, our fourth grade teacher, for all of the work she put into changing the town seal. It may have taken a long time to change the seal, but it was worth it. Thank you for listening.
The fourth grade class would like to present to the governor the Constitution of the State of Vermont, and it's a signed copy on the back with a new symbol in the design there. So yeah.
Very nice. Thank you very much. I live in Wardsboro, and a few years ago I had the opportunity to watch my daughter's class make a presentation at the State House, and after several trips and much persistence, I also got the opportunity to travel to the State House and watch that bill become law. And it was a great privilege and honor to see such work be done by the students, and it kind of also inspired me, and because of that I also wanted to get involved, and when there was an opportunity to be part of the study committee for the merger, I jumped at the chance, and it was a great experience. And now it's a great honor to introduce my son's class, who's going to be introducing the gill feather turnip to the governor. So without further ado, the 5th and 6th grade class of Wardsboro Elementary School.
So this is going to be a short story that this class has written about the journey to the State House and the turning the gill feather turnip into the state vegetable. This class, unfortunately, was not a part of that process. However, they are reaping the benefits of that and have some siblings. We have some siblings out here who actually were part of that, and we would like to recognize them as well. So, without further ado, this is the true story of civic engagement in action. The story of a group of Wardsboro elementary students that made history.
The gill feather turnip goes to Montpelier by the Wardsboro 5th and 6th grade class of 2017.
Once upon a time, at Wardsboro Elementary 5th and 6th grade classes, there was a buzz about the gill feather turnip. After all, the gill right around the corner. Then a light bulb went off, and an idea was born. Why don't we make the gill feather turnip a state vegetable?
Once that idea had been planted, there was no turning back.
Who can we call for help? How about Laura Scalia, Carolyn Partridge, or Carol Backus? Oh yes, all three of these will surely help us figure out what we need to do.
And indeed they did. With continued support from all three, the students were able to navigate the process.
First, a bill is drafted, then it is sent to Montpelier for consideration. Now the real work begins. Students get right to work sharpening pencils and brainstorming ideas, crumpling papers, making posters, and writing speeches. There was so much excitement in the air, and yet all they could do was wait.
Would they consider this bill and move it through the process, or would it be dead in the water?
Soon Miss Shakespeare gets the good news. The Agricultural Committee at the State House would like the students to come up to Montpelier and convince them why they should consider the gill feather turnip a state vegetable. Game on.
Over the hill and to Bellows Falls on the State House they go, with Ariana blinding Miss Shakespeare with her perfume. They drive to Montpelier, trekking along the way. Once there, they turn up their charm for the committee. Seemed like the local turnip was on its way to becoming famous.
But the legislative session closes before the end of the school year. Will this be the end for our beloved turnip? No way. Even though Mrs. Shakespeare was retiring and the session had ended, the bill would live on.
Miss Shakespeare passed the turnip to Miss Bova, and the journey continued. What does that mean for the next class? You've guessed it. More pencil sharpening, more papers being crumpled, more posters being made, and 2 more trips to the Golden Dome. First to reconvince the Agricultural Committee, then on to the Senate. Both groups grilled us, not unlike what might happen to our flavorful turnip, and served our bill to the House. They loved it and voted it to make it a law on April 29, 2016.
Of course, the story doesn't end there.
We have one final trip to the State House to join Governor Peter Shumlin as he signed the bill into law for all the world to see.
If everybody, what we're going to do is, the governor's got a few minutes, and he's got a few remarks, and then if there's any questions, I know I had the good fortune to be with Senator Ballant yesterday when she was in Dover, and I'm sure she did the same thing with you guys in Wardsboro. There was a lot of good questions the students had. about what do you do as government, in government, what do you do on a board, and what do you do as governor, and maybe questions about why the gold endowment's there. So you've
Not
got
tough questions like that.
So the governor will have a few remarks, and then he'll answer some questions, and then we'll have to call the meeting to order because, again, the governor's going to organize this new district for us, and I think the students are going to stay in and see how that works. So, Governor?
Well, thank you so much, and really, really appreciate it. All the good work you've done, and it's a pleasure for me to be here to call the meeting, first meeting of the River Valley School District School Board, which we'll get into in just a bit. First of all, it's great to hear about some of the projects that you've been working on. It really does give me a great amount of pleasure to see so many students of our youth getting involved in civics. And I was there, actually. I was presiding officer in the Senate. I was lieutenant governor before becoming governor. So I was there when the law passed and the bill passed in the Senate. And so I got a good close-up look at what all the hard work that you put into that. And I'm sure you benefited as well, some that who had gone and taken part of the process to see the good, the bad sometimes in the legislative process, but also, and some would say the ugly, I say the beautiful. So I think it was a great time to get involved and see how the process works. Your success in the legislature certainly fits in the same theme of today's meeting, which is the importance of civic engagement and education in Vermont, and I have some thoughts on both I'd like to share with you if that's okay. First and foremost, I myself am a proud product of Vermont's public schools. I went to Spalding High School and grew up in the blue-collar community of Barrie, which is known for its rich cultural ethnicity. People from all different ethnic backgrounds, Italians, Swedes, French Canadians, and Scots, who were drawn to the area for economic reasons in pursuit of a better life through the granite industry. Certainly, this melting pot brought its fair share of disagreement, but a prevailing sense of community, respect for others, and unity, and a proud identity as to who we are and who we are as public institutions. In our schools in particular, brought together this community and provided for a great outcome. Today, our schools are more important than ever in giving our kids the skills, knowledge, and perspective they need to meet the demands of the 21st century and to thrive as well. And the level of difficulty is compounded amidst the significant demographic and economic challenges we face as a state. It's not going to be easy, but it's encouraging to see so many people here today engaged on the issues and working together to find solutions. I think it demonstrates the close link between civic engagement and how we deliver education to many corners of our small state. To me, civic engagement means working to make a difference, working together to make a difference in our communities and developing the combination of knowledge, skills, values, and motivation to make that difference. It means promoting the quality of life in a community through both political and non-political processes. Throughout my entire career in politics and business, I've always approached problems and challenges by trying to lead by example and by focusing on the things that unite us rather than what divides us in order to build consensus around those ideas. The reason I mentioned the history of the town I grew up in is because I think it stands out in stark contrast to some of the political rhetoric and engagement we see on the national level today. It seems like national debates on public policy are becoming so polarized when we should be looking for common ground and common goals. Thinking about our own debates here in Vermont, we should all be careful not to allow the rhetoric around issues like budget choices or tax policies or other issues, or combining schools to degrade and include words like assault or attack. When a legitimate policy debate is characterized in these terms, in the terms of violence and war, or us versus them, that's when the divide grows ever wider and the opportunity for compromise is diminished. And it just comes down to winners and losers, which just raises the stakes for everyone involved. I had the privilege of addressing a few graduating classes this past spring, as most commencement speakers are expected to do, I tried to offer some words to live by. And here's what I suggested to the class of 2017. Remember the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. It's really a pretty simple concept. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And by the way, the same holds true for Twitter. Tweet others the way you want to be tweeted. Remember that. Understand how we act when we're not in the spotlight is just as important as how we act when we're on center stage or on the field. Owning and learning from our mistakes builds character. Let's be honest, we all make them. And those mistakes are only weaknesses if we don't use them to make ourselves better. And finally, understand the importance of integrity. Because at the end of the day, when all is said and done, that's how most of us will be remembered. I think the country could use a little more of this approach right now. And as public servants, I believe if we listen to and learn from all people with different perspectives, if we rise above the polarization and treat people with dignity and respect, we'll be more effective leaders. We'll bring people together to build bridges and solve problems. I believe this will set the right tone for our kids, and we'll be able to douse those embers of hate by denying them the fuel they need to grow. I think if we all stick to these fundamentals, we can continue to distinguish ourselves in Vermont as good civic leaders. So I really appreciate you having me here today. I'd be happy at this point to answer any of the simple questions you might have.
So does anybody has any questions for the governor? This is a good chance, you guys, you kids, to ask questions like you asked of the senator yesterday. You can also ask them of the governor. Any students? Go ahead. Do you have a question?
Don't be shy.
He doesn't bite. Here we go.
Is the top of the building actual gold?
It's a gold leaf. Yes, it is. It's actually a gold leaf. It's painted, but there's a gold leaf tint to it. Did you know what the original color was? Red. Yeah, that's right. Somebody was listening. Yes.
How much time do you spend in the building?
How much time do I spend in the State House, you mean? More time during the legislative session than I do during these times. I'm out on the road all the time during the summer or in the executive office, which is right next door. So we have a ceremonial office in the State House. So when the legislature's in session, I meet with legislators at that point. But most of my time is spent outside of the State House. And by the way, when I was in the Senate before I became lieutenant governor. And 20 years ago, I didn't have a political bone in my body. I really didn't understand politics all that well. And I thought the governor was probably the most important person in the state, right? And in the State House in particular, I thought that the governor was in charge of the State House. Well, that's not true. It's actually the people's house. And I have to, when I was lieutenant governor, and the governor would go away and I'd become acting governor, I couldn't preside over the Senate anymore. I had to walk out of the building. Or out of the chamber. You have to be invited, as the governor, you have to be invited into the House chamber or the Senate chamber. You just can't walk in on your own. So again, it's a separation of powers. Yes?
When you are working in the State House, how much time do you what's a typical day?
A typical day doesn't continues for me year round. I'm an early riser. I get up around 4:30 or so. I was in the construction industry for 3 decades, so I just continue the day that I usually go to work. I'm into the office typically around 6:30 or so. And then I'm out on the road, but I come back during the day or at night and usually don't get home until, at the very earliest, I get home at 7:30 at night, but sometimes it's much, much later. And it's typically on the weekends as well. Yes?
How comfy is your chair?
How comfy is my chair? It's not bad. House chamber, right? Some of you. Those chairs aren't as comfortable as the Senate chairs. I just wanted to let you know. And those big red chairs in the back of the House chamber, if you remember all those are for the Senate. They look pretty comfy. Yes. How what? How big is the office? My office in the State House, I would say it's about a third of the size of this room. It's pretty big. It's ceremonial. It's very ornate, very beautiful. Do you have a question?
Where do you sleep?
Where I sleep? Sometimes in the car. I grew up in Barrie, and now I live in Berlin, which is right next door. So I didn't go a long ways. So I live in Berlin. Yes.
Were you a Boy Scout growing up?
I was a Cub Scout growing up. I went to Weeblo and then didn't become a Boy Scout for whatever reason.
What were you before you were the governor?
What was I before? In politics, I was in the Senate first, and then I became lieutenant governor for 3 terms, and then became governor. In my other life, I had a construction business that I owned with my cousin for about 30 years. And I also drive stock cars, and I haven't given that up, and I've been doing that for almost 3 decades as well. Any other questions? Yes?
What is it like being governor?
What's it like being governor? It's probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done, but it's not easy. It's challenging. Every day there's a new challenge that you face. Very difficult decisions to make every day. But again, if we can make a difference individually, and if we can make a difference for Vermont, and I believe that we're trying, my administration, my team, and I believe in a team approach, by the way. It isn't all about the governor. It's about the team you put together, as well as working with the legislature and other areas of government. So it's an interesting process, but again, very rewarding.
Did you come in a limo?
I did not. We have an SUV. It's as nice as a limo. Yes.
What's the nicest car you have?
What's the nicest car I have personally?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of cars over the years. I've owned a lot of Camaros. I've owned Corvettes. I have race cars. Probably my prized possessions are my motorcycles, though. I have 4 motorcycles. I have a 1941 Indian. It's a military bike. I have a 1943 BSA, which is a military bike, World War II. I have a 1998 Harley Fat Boy, and I have a Triumph Thunderbird as well.
Oh, have you ever met Donald Trump?
That was good. Actually, I did on one occasion. I was in all the governors. They have a National Governors Association, and they're governors from both Republicans and Democrats. And we go and meet in March in Washington. So we were all invited to the White House. So all 50 or almost 50 governors went to the White House for dinner. So I met President Trump at that time. Yes.
Have you met Bernie Sanders?
Oh yes, I interact with Bernie Sanders quite a bit. With the rest of our congressional delegation, because we try and work together. I always have said, regardless of your political party, regardless of politics, once you're elected, you transition to becoming a public servant. So once you're a public servant, you try and get things accomplished. So you have to work with everyone. So I have a great relationship with Congressman Welch, Senator Leahy, and Senator Sanders, and their offices and their teams.
How long have you been governor?
About 9 months now.
What was your first motorcycle or car?
My My first motorcycle was a 250 Osa. It was a dirt bike. My first car was a 1971 Chevrolet Camaro. Yes.
What do you want to be other than a governor
What I want to do other than governor?
when you were a kid?
Good question. I love to build things, create things. I love the construction business. I love to be a carpenter. I love to just create things. So I was in industrial arts and tech ed, and then I decided I wanted to be a machinist. So I was in vocational training in the afternoons, took my college prep in the mornings, and then I decided I went to UVM. I went to UVM to become a tech ed teacher. And after I graduated, did my student teaching, received my certification, and then decided to go in business instead. I really like business of all types, but I love to build things, like buildings and roads and so forth.
Do you come in a limo?
No. We came in an SUV. It looks like a limo. It's black, but it's an SUV. Yes.
Do you have children?
I do. I have 2 daughters. In fact, they're all grown up now. My youngest is going to be married in 2 weeks. She lives in Providence, Rhode Island. So that's a new phase in my life. So, yes.
Have you ever, or do you plan on coming to the tournament?
I knew that was a serious question. There's 2 things that they did to me when I became governor, right? They took my car keys away. They don't let me drive anymore, which I love to drive, but I can't drive anymore. And they took my scheduling privileges away as well. So I don't schedule any of they tell me where I have to go. So every week we meet as a committee, and we have hundreds of requests that come in for me to be everywhere. And then we determine what I have time for, what fits in, and trying to get around the state to different areas. So I'm sure, did you make a request, or are you making a request now?
I am making a request.
Kendall, if you'd write that down.
I don't have a question, but I would like to make a comment on the process of bringing these kids up and turning a bill into a law. And that is that the whole State House, from the legislators, the committees, the representatives, made it easy for the kids to come into the building, but they did not make it easy for them to just pass through that bill. So they gave them a real-world experience in a welcoming way, and I hope that that continues in the state of Vermont.
I think that's where we all have a shared goal, right? It's all about our future, our kids, and we want to create an environment that they understand and teach, a teaching moment as well. But we want them here. It's really it's been great for us to have kids come there. It's great to be in the PAGE program as well. You have an opportunity. You should apply for that. That's a rewarding experience. Yes?
How old are you?
It's hard to believe. But I'm 59 now. I know. Look, you hear that? I'm sorry?
Are there elevators in the State House?
There's an elevator in the State House. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Okay, so now we get down to the real work. So, this is a declaration of this meeting. This is a meeting warning. The legal voters of the River Valley's United School District, Unified School District, comprising the voters of the towns of Dover and Wardsboro, were notified and warned to meet at the Wardsboro Town Hall on September 22nd, 2017 at 3 o'clock to take action on the warrant articles. I hereby declare that the organization meeting of the River Valleys Unified School District is now open. I think at this point in time, since we have a teaching moment and this is civics, I think we should say the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would. We have a flag right there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So welcome to the new organization of this new district. The purpose of this meeting is to elect district officers, swear in the new board, and give the board the powers and duties it needs to conduct its business. I would also like to recognize the members of the study committee for their hard work across districts to figure out how to work together to provide better opportunities for all their children in ways they can sustain into the future at a time when schools are asked to do more than ever before. This is the first time the new board will come together, and we have high confidence in your commitment to working together to realize the aspirations of your children. As you move towards operation of the new unified district, this new board will take on the work of planning and managing the new system. To vote on articles from the warning, you must be a registered voter in the town of Dover and Wardsboro and pass through the checklist at the entrance. There, your name will be checked against the list of legal voters of each town and receive a voting ballot that you will show during a voice vote from the floor or deposit it in the ballot box if a vote by paper ballot is called. If a paper vote is requested, you will be given instructions on the procedure. Non-residents and unregistered voters may not vote, but may be allowed to speak with the approval of 2/3 of the assembly. If you are a non-resident or an unregistered voter, please remain silent during a voice vote. Additionally, you may not raise your hands or stand if a physical count is required, and we appreciate your cooperation. Minutes are being recorded for this meeting. All motions, remarks, and discussion should be addressed to the moderator. Anyone wishing to address the assembly or anyone responding to questions from the floor must state his or her full name and speak so that comments may be heard by the entire assembly. With that, we'll move on to board member affirmation. I would now ask that the elected board members for the River Valleys Unified School District please stand and raise their right hand and repeat after me. Now, when I say state your name, don't repeat that. I state your name.
I
Do solemnly affirm
solemnly affirm
that I will be true and faithful
that I will be true and faithful
to the state of Vermont,
to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not,
and that I will not,
directly or indirectly,
directly or indirectly,
do any act or thing
do any act or thing
injurious to the Constitution
injurious to the Constitution
or government thereof,
or government thereof,
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I state your name, do solemnly affirm
Solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of Director for the River Valleys
the office of Director for the River Valleys
Unified School District,
Unified School District,
and will therein do
and will therein do
equal right and justice to all persons,
equal right and justice to all persons,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
according to law,
according to law,
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
under the pains and penalties of perjury.
Okay. Congratulations. Now, temporary presiding officer nominations are now in order for one to serve as the presiding officer. Are there any nominations? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Sarah Shippey, please.
Sarah Shippey's name is placed in nomination. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are now closed. So, all in favor of electing Sarah Shippey as your temporary presiding officer, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, signify by saying no. You have now elected Sarah Shippey as your temporary presiding officer. And I will now relinquish that, the podium to her. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May I have all of the board members, River Valley's Unified District board members join us up here, please? Getting close, guys. It's easier to take a picture that way. Carrie and I are going to represent.
Thank you, Shippey.
I would like to entertain a motion to nominate a temporary clerk from among the qualified voters. Is there a nomination? Article 2 is first.
Yeah, Robert's rules.
I apologize. I would entertain a motion to, this is Article 2, to adopt Robert's Rules of Order or other rules of order to govern the parliamentary procedures of this and subsequent meetings of the district. Would anyone care to make a motion?
So moved, Vicky Capitani.
Vicky Capitani, so moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, and the name is?
Joshua Gunn.
Thank you, Josh. All right, all in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Now, I would entertain a motion to nominate a temporary clerk for the purpose of this meeting.
Temporary clerk?
Clerk, yes, because I was the presiding officer and clerk. Do we have a nomination?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Andy McLean.
Andy McLean, Rich Werner
Rich Werner, I'd like to nominate Andy.
nominates Andy McLean. Is there a second?
Marco Tonini, second.
Marco seconds. Andy, will you accept the nomination? Sure. All right. All in favor of Andy McLean as temporary clerk? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Andy, congratulations. Need a nomination, or Article 3, to elect the following officers to serve from their election and qualification for 1 year or until the election and qualification of their successors. We need nominations for we'll start one at a time. We'll do moderator. We have a nomination for the moderator. Rich Werner.
Rich Werner, I'd like to nominate Robert Backus for the moderator's position.
All right. Robert Backus has been nominated. Is there a second? Thank you. And are there any other nominations for moderator? Hearing none, we will vote on Robert Backus as moderator for the River Valleys Unified District. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes carry it. Robert Backus is nominated. Now we need to nominate a clerk. Do we have a nomination for clerk?
I'd like to nominate Andy McLean, Laura Sibilia.
Laura Sibilia. And do we have a second?
Carrie McDonald, Katie, second.
Carrie McDonald, Katie seconds. Andy, will you accept the nomination?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we will vote. All in favor of Andy McLean as clerk for the River Valleys Unified School District, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Now I will entertain a nomination for treasurer of the River Valleys School District. We have a treasurer.
That would have to be elected.
Mr.
Bill Anton,
Thank you.
Dover.
Yes.
I would like to nominate Marco Tellini for treasurer.
Okay. Is there a second?
Tammy, second.
Okay. Vicky Capitani seconds. Marco, will you accept the nomination?
I do.
Thank you.
Could I have the name of the second, please?
The second was Victoria Capitani.
Thank you.
Are there any other nominations for treasurer? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor of Marco Tellini as the treasurer for this unified district, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Marco's elected. Congratulations. Article 4 is to determine and approve compensation, if any, to be paid to district officers. May I have a motion for that?
The school board, Rich Werner, the group of school board members has not been, we hadn't been organized yet and we hadn't been sworn in. So we held several meetings, which we called meetings of concerned citizens, to discuss some of these items that would be brought up today. And we met in Wardsboro about a month ago, and we came up as a group. We're going to recommend to the group that in Dover, school board members get $2,000 a year, and in Wardsboro they get $200. So we thought we'd split it down the middle and recommend that a board member be reimbursed $1,000 for the part of the year. So if you were to serve a full year, it'd be $1,000. But if it's only half a year, you would only get half that. So we would ask if somebody would make a motion to that effect, or whatever you folks as the electorate wish to see.
May I have a motion?
I move that we pay our board members $1,000 annually, prorated, depending upon how much time they serve.
All right. And your name is?
My name's Andy McLean.
Thank you. May I have a second for the motion?
Second, Marco Tellini.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor of a motion to pay the school board members $1,000 per year prorated, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Article 5 is to establish a date for the annual meeting. May I have a motion for
Again, the group met, and we're recommending for the next meeting to do it on the second Tuesday in February. And I don't have the date in my head. 13.
Somebody get out their smartphone.
So we asked that because we felt that there's not going to be a budget voted on. We won't be running the school district for a little over a year and a half out. And that would be a good time not to conflict with town meeting, because the Dover board and the Wardsboro board will still have to have a meeting with the voters to run their town school for that last year.
That would be the 8th. 8th of February.
8th of February, thank you.
February 8th, 2018 is the recommended date.
That's a Thursday.
That's a
or
Thursday. Oops.
The second Tuesday is the 13th.
2000, that's okay. So the recommendation is February 13th, 2018 for the first meeting.
I have a point of order. It's probably best if we do it after this goes.
Oh, all right. So I would like to entertain a motion to establish the date of February 13th, 2018 for the annual meeting.
So moved. Victoria Capitani.
May I have a second?
Neil Cutler, second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor of establishing the annual meeting as February 13th, 2018, signify by saying yes. Aye. Sorry. Any opposed? The motion carries. The first annual meeting will be held on February 13th, 2018. Andy, you had a point of order?
I think Article 4 was to determine the pay for moderator, clerk, and treasurer, and the article at the end is for school directors. I don't know how to fix that at this point since we've moved past Article 4, but Article 1 will assure you I won't take any compensation for my work until your meeting in February.
All right. I suppose we should then revote the motion. If it was made incorrectly, we should revote it. So Article 4 is to determine and approve compensation to be paid to the officers, which would be moderator, clerk, and treasurer. May I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, I don't think we can revisit the article once we vote beyond that.
We can't?
No,
I
once
think if it was made incorrectly, though?
Well, I don't think it was made incorrectly. I don't think we might have understood what we were saying.
So can we bring it up under the business then? Because it was warned.
We can rewarn a meeting, do that.
We can rewarn it?
Yeah.
I
But
think we're all here. If we don't accept the compensation,
yeah, I mean, it just,
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
I just wanted to bring it up.
Thank you, Andy. So we'll have to pass on that, and then it'll be addressed at a future meeting?
yeah.
Okay, all right. So,
Luckily, this is the only time you ever have.
So I have
okay.
a point of reference with regards to Article 4. I mean, I know we were voting and thinking of the school board members, but I believe that the clerk, the moderator, and the treasurer, they're going to have extra duties that, as far as preparing for that annual meeting, that organizational meeting, that I do think that they should be compensated. I don't think $1,000 is a lot for the extra work that they're asking them to do. And I think that it is actually appropriate.
So, but we've already voted. And essentially what we voted was to pay the treasurer, moderator, and clerk $1,000. So I would
It's up to
suggest
them
that
to decide
perhaps,
if they want to take it or not.
right, I would suggest that perhaps you can decline the offer of payment once it's made to you. Okay?
Thank you, Barry.
Glad we brought that up.
Or not.
Or not. Since Andy offered to not get paid, I thought I would tell him. But if you change your mind.
Right.
All right, Article 6 is to establish provisions for the payment of any expense incurred by the Unified Union District and otherwise comply with the provisions of 16 VSA Section 563, subdivisions 8 and 9, until the first annual meeting to take place on February 13th, 2018. Mr. Anton?
Bill Anton, Dover. I move that the River Valley School District comply with provisions of 16 VSA Section 563, subdivisions 8 and 9, regarding the payment of expenses and the maintenance of financial accounts, and comply with the policies and procedures of the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union regarding such matters.
Thank you. Is there a second for that motion?
David Scott, Wardsboro, second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor of Article 6, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion for Article 7 to authorize the district to borrow money pending receipt of payments from the State Education Fund by the issuance of its notes or orders payable not later than 1 year from date provided. Provided, however, that the newly formed district is authorized by Vermont statutes to borrow sufficient funds to meet pending obligations.
Bill Anton, Dover. I move that the River Valley School District have the power to borrow money pending receipt of payments from the State Education Fund by the issuance of its notes or orders payable not later than 1 year from date, provided, however, that the newly formed district is authorized by the Vermont statutes to borrow sufficient funds to meet pending obligations.
Do I have a second for that motion?
Second, Vicky Capitani.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Article 8, to determine and approve compensation, if any, to be paid to school board directors. So I will remind you that this was discussed previously. Would someone like to make a motion regarding the compensation for the school board directors?
Dear Benson Dover, I'll make a motion that they are paid $1,000 annually, prorated, if they are half-year term.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you repeat your name?
Deirdre Benson.
Deirdre, thank you. May I have a second for that motion?
Neil Cutler, Wardsboro, second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor of paying the school board directors $1,000 each prorated for the length of service, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Article 9, to determine whether to authorize the Board of School Directors pursuant to the provisions of 16 VSA 563:10 and 11C to provide mailed notice to residents of the availability of the annual report and proposed school budget in lieu of distributing the annual report and proposed budget.
Bill Anton, Dover. So moved.
May I have a second?
Second, Marco Cellini.
Marco Cellini. All right, so the motion is to determine whether to authorize the Board of School Directors pursuant to the provisions of 16 VSA 563:10 and 11C to provide mailed notice to residents of the availability of the annual report and proposed school budget in lieu of distributing the annual report and proposed budget. All in favor, signify by saying aye. I'm sorry. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
Who will be mailing that out? Would that be the supervisory union, the mail notice? How will that be?
That will be the River Valley School District.
Would that be the responsibility of the clerk?
It's the responsibility of the Board of School Directors.
Andy?
Mr. Moderator, in Dover, currently for town meeting, we provide notice of the availability by taking out a legal ad in the paper of record that the reports are available. We don't mail notice. In Wardsboro, Jackie, do you mail notice, or do you put it in the paper, or do you?
We mail the annual report to the people on the voter checklist.
Wow.
So,
But we wouldn't do it twice, I don't think.
meeting again in February, and there will be no budget to vote on, and there will really be no report, because there will be no real financial situation, because we don't have a budget to operate with. So there's a lot of questions that we've had, you know, when you have a budget vote, how does that work? Because the first budget has to be voted by Australian ballot. There's a lot of questions on when you have your meetings in different locations and who's responsible for different things. And a lot of that stuff will need to be determined over the next year and a half. And a lot of the schools are proposing, a lot of the mergers are proposing to start July 1st of 2018. We specifically, as the study group and as this group, asked for that extra year because we felt it was really important, because there are just so many questions, because it is a new district. And again, I believe this is a question that we can leave open, but next year on this February 14th or whatever day, the 13th, you know, we will be able to, at that time, make a good recommendation to the voters as a board, saying that this is what we believe, and this is, we've talked to our town clerks, we've talked to our select boards, we've talked to everybody, and we've got input, and this is what we recommend that you do, and then you will decide how you want to do it. So right now, even, I believe this is pretty much not a big deal, because at worst, it would just be a postcard we could mail out, if you chose to go that route.
Is there any further discussion? So is the board proposing that we vote in the, are you recommending we vote in the affirmative and that you'll determine the means of written communication you'll use, like postcard or?
Right, and then we will present to the voters a recommendation next February as to how we move forward. And I believe that was, because that's one of the things we'll need to determine as approved.
All right, so is there any other discussion? Yes?
Victoria Capitani. So can we pass over this article, or do we have to take action on this article? I believe we have.
The new district must obtain this permission specifically from the voters, even if it was given previously to the merging districts, because this is a new entity.
So we must vote on it, but we can leave open the question of how or what that written communication will be and leave that to the discretion of the board.
No, it will be a mail notice.
Right, I mean mail, but it can be, it doesn't have to be the whole,
Right.
but it can be a postcard. If that's what I meant by saying.
Because there will be no budget to vote on at the next meeting.
Victoria Capitani. So in February, this particular item will be up again with other information or wording or whatever that would actually be something that we would have to have more action on the next year because of the budget.
Did you have
No, just confirming that Ms. Capitani is right on.
All right. Is there any other discussion? All right. All in favor of Article 9? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. And then we may transact any other school business thought proper when met. However, be aware that this is not a business meeting, so it is not appropriate to vote on items that have not been warned. So there can be discussion, but nothing can be voted on.
Bill Anton, Dover. I just wanted to announce that the organizational meeting for this newly elected board will be occurring on October 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Dover Elementary School. It has been duly warned, and an agenda will be warned in proper advance notice.
Are there any other comments or announcements?
Hi, Randy Capitani. I would just like to urge the board, or request the board, to consider the Deerfield Valley News as a paper of record. We did have an issue with the supervisory union, and it didn't. The warning for this got sent to a different newspaper. I don't think a lot of people got that because of it. So if you can consider that, I would appreciate it.
Neil Cutler, Wardsboro. I feel like I know people in Wardsboro that had no idea that this meeting was happening. I spoke to 2 people who don't have children in the elementary school, and they had no idea what was going on. And even what I got from the newsletter from school was pretty vague. I'm like, I don't really know. I'm going because my child's doing something, but I don't know what the depth of it is. So I don't know where it got warned or put out, but I always saw it through my kids' school stuff.
So, are there any other comments on this or any other topic? I think the board will take under advisement the comments made and respond appropriately. All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
We got an announcement.
Oh, we have an announcement. I apologize.
Well, a couple things. I'd like to just thank everyone for coming out today. And we as a board have a lot to do when this district takes effect September 2019. It's very important that, it's great that you guys came out today, but it's very important that we get a lot of input from families, from parents, because we have a lot of big decisions that we need to make, and we don't want to make them on our own. We want to make them as a community. So it's very important that everyone comes out to the meetings and gets involved. But since you've all been here today, you've all been so good, everyone gets a piece of cake. There's cake downstairs, and that's for everyone. So,
all right, children, would everyone please take their seats for 1 second? I promise there's probably, I'm not certain, but I'm almost certain there's enough cake, even if you're not the first one. Are there any other comments? Hand raised.
playing to kids from Dover and Wardsboro. That was really cool. Those were fun presentations. And excellent job.
Is there another comment from the floor? All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Josh Cohen, so moved.
Second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.